getting started, then I'll be talking about Anemic against Rich domain model. And then let's jump into it. Let me bring here the other. So today's agenda will discuss about what is a domain model, understanding what is anemic model and also rich model. Then I will compare both and talk a bit about trade-offs, when to choose each one, right? So let's start first then about this question, right? So what is a domain model? So the domain model is the representation of the specific business domain into programming objects. And those programming objects they could vary between entities, value objects, aggregates, and services. So the difference between entities and value objects, um, it's more in about the details. So entities usually are things they are unique. You have one ID to specify and talk about them. So despite of my name is Bruno and there is another Bruno with the same name, we are two independent, different persons. Despite our names being the same, maybe we were born at the same day or at the same time, we are still different person. So whenever you have this uniqueness between objects or items in your domain, then you have an entity. So value objects are the opposite way. So I can interchange things because they have the same value. So a number, for example, the number 2, right? If I have multiple copies of the same number 2, they are always number 2. They are something I can interchange. I can change one from the other and nothing will be changed. So the aggregates is the entities, these objects that combine entities and value objects, or are also multiple entities. And then we have the domain services. So let me bring the pointer here. So the domain the domain model that we have usually is defined as the heart of the application because it should contain everything that is really, really important for the application should be placed inside of the domain. And the domain is the secret of doing business. Everything else is complexity we have to deal with, is code that we have to write. But in order to achieve a special goal for the business domain. So everything works towards the domain. Therefore, we have multiple patterns, multiple software designs that are focused into segregating it from the rest of the application in order that we can always keep this special thing isolated and we are able to evolve, able to change. And if ever we need to change our infrastructure, if we need to change the database, if we need to change the external systems, we still have our domain intact there. We still have our domain in this very special place, right? So the domain should capture all, the domain model should capture all the domain knowledge and its behavior in the code, right? So now the other question, right? What is an anemic domain? So, and why is it bad, let's say? So anemic domain can be defined and is defined by some code programmers that are a big reference as an anti-pattern, so something that you should avoid because it breaks some principles in programming. So in one anemic domain, the objects hold only data, and that goes against the object-oriented programming because the object-oriented programming says that objects contain data plus behavior. So an object knows how to do things. It doesn't only have properties. So Bruno as a person, me, I know how to eat, I know how to sleep, I know how to take actions. I'm not just a person that has some attributes like a beautiful hair, beautiful smile, So beautiful voice. No, I'm not only that. I also know how to do stuff. So objects that we map into the software also needs to hold uh, these behaviors plus data. And whenever you see a class that is defined like this, so here I just have few properties, right? So I have a string. So this is one bank account. I have just a string account number, decimal, which is the balance, or if it's active, or the type of the account. But I don't have any real operation. Like whenever I'm creating this account, for example, I'm not doing any specific action or validations to see if this account is valid or not, let's say. So in this case, for example, if I'm adding records to this account, I don't have a method that adds a record and do any specific logic or behavior. So if I also want to deactivate this account, this thing here is public, and anyone that is consuming this class, this domain object, can change however they want. So I'm not protecting it from being inactive if, for example, it has some balance, right? So when thinking about bank account, I shouldn't deactivate an account that has some amount on it, because if I do, then what will happen with that money? Will it be gone forever? How to retrace the money? So see, whenever doing changes within the data of an object, I also need to perform some business rules validations in order to do it in a proper way. And if I don't, and if I don't keep it here very close to my definition of the domain object, then I'm spreading this around all around the code. So whenever the person who is implementing the behavior of this object that is not here, this person might do it right in the first place, but in the second place where it needs to do the same operation, does it in a different way. And that's also brings code duplication and difficulty to maintain this code. So the main characteristic of this anemic domain model. One good thing is that it's easy to read because like pretty simple. I have just it's a bag of properties. I just keep putting values on it, right? So it's very easy to read. But then the problems, the business logic is spread all across services. So whoever is implementing something about accounts must to every time repeat themselves or put the specific business logic into each service. There's no encapsulation, right? So everything is public. Anyone could do anything with an account here. There's no hard rules within the account itself. It breaks the object-oriented principles, which means that the objects must to have behaviors. The objects, they do not contain only data. And then often it leads to procedural design. So whenever I'm using this, I'm writing a piece of code, a piece of service that will do things in a specific order, but it's hard to reuse. It's hard um, to keep cohesive and having one single responsibility. Usually the services that would be on top of this, like create an account or deactivate an account, would have this very defined and rigid um, process, one following the other, and sometimes repeating themselves, right? So those are in general the problems of this anemic model. And this is very easy to start to build something. So if I'm writing a software from scratch or writing a new part of a new domain, a subdomain of my application. So we have a new business problem that we need to solve, and I'm mapping this problem to the code and I'm starting to fix it. It's very hard to start, it's very easy to start with this model because it doesn't need too much thinking before I start to write. I simply list all the possible values of this specific domain entity, and then I start to write my procedural code regarding it. So it's one of the benefits, right? It's easy to write it, and maybe that's why even nowadays it's very easy to find code, new code that is written this way without the rich domain on it. So with this dynamic model. Now, when talking about then the rich model, right? So what is the difference between the rich model? Main difference is that I'm creating this object that contains behavior and also contains the business rules. So everything that is important to my business to function, to work, I place very close to the entity's definition itself. So the close as I can. This way, I'm making that first picture we saw, the domain that we have, very unique and protected from the outside. So everyone that is using, consuming this information, implementing new services, they need to obey to this rule. They cannot break the rules I define in my object. So for example, here, whenever I'm creating this account, I'm receiving the account type, and also the account number. And I'm also setting it as active. So for example, in a code that doesn't behave like that, would be very easy for people to create accounts without proper active status. So I would have a bug that I would find out later that every new account is being created as inactive, right? That could be very easy and actually is very common to occur whenever you don't have this um, you don't prepare your objects to be created, for example. Also, another difference here is that every set that I have, whenever I'm adding value to these object properties, I cannot do outside of the account itself. So I need one account to exist, and I need methods to change the the values of this object. So if I want to change the isActive status, I need them to implement properly here what's going to happen every time, every single time I try to deactivate an account. And one of the possible rules would be, for example, to check that the balance is 0. So I cannot, or yeah, in this case, actually it needs to be 0, because if the account has less than 0, so the bank needs to ask the person to pay first before closing the account. So yeah, for example, in this case, I already define up ahead what is the actions, or are the requirements, the validations, the business rules in order to perform some action that will in the end change the state of my object. It will change the data that I have, but it requires some validations or some rules, right? Also, when adding items to my account, when adding a record, I also need to perform some validations to check the state of the object, to check if the new record is valid or not. So everything I do within this domain entity, right? So this is, now I have this rich entity, which whenever combined with multiple rich entities, brings to me this rich domain. So if I want to maybe rewrite everything in my service layer, I can do it easily. Also, I can test this one easily, so I can make sure that I don't have entities usually don't have any extra outside dependence. So I can very easily unit test this and make sure that no one breaks it going further. So I would never change this code or extend this code, breaking, for example, this rule of deactivation, because I have proper unit tests that are very easy to write, that are cheap to run. So everything here is very easy to maintain, right? Now, talking again about the main characteristics. So I have strong encapsulation. The only thing that knows how to change values here is the account itself. So I'm hiding from outside world the possibility of changing specific value, account number. So I'm removing this this possibility of error from my code. The business logic is close to the data that it operates on. So it's regarding this statement here, the account knows how to manage itself. The account is independent, is a strong defined object that knows how to do stuff. It enforces domain environment invariance, so I can define the rules, and those rules are well defined and protected. Aligns more with domain-driven design, right? That's a principle of thinking and caring about the complexity of the domain. So the code should mainly, what is the main responsibility of the code is to resolve domain problems, right? And break them into small pieces. And also aligns more with object-oriented programming principle, and is easier to reasonable about in complex domains. So this anemic model here is fine whenever you have a small piece of code that it's not important, or that whenever you are just moving data from one place to the other, that's fine too. But whenever you start to add behavior to this and you start to build more complexity around that, then is when it becomes a problem, because the logic starts to spread around the code. You change stuff and you don't know that you should be changing more places, because whenever you look here, oh, this is a very simple code. It doesn't have any specific business rules, like it's easy to maintain, it's fine. But then when I look at the picture, where I have the deactivation or add rules, I see, okay, it's not that easy code. So I do have some validations here. I do have some behavior here that was missing in the other place. So it's much more easy to maintain those complex domains with the rich model. Now the side-by-side comparison. So dynamic model, the data is separate from the logic. In the rich, we keep them very close. The encapsulation then is weak in the anemic model, in the rich model is strong. So the flexibility is low in complex domain, right? So it's hard to change stuff here. So if I want to change a property in the anemic domain, it's hard for me to know if I can really change this property or not, because I don't know exactly what are the other places that are depending on this one. Now, when I have a rich domain, I know exactly that everything that is relying or depending on it should be close here, at least the complex stuff. So DDD alignment, DDD strongly suggests this rich model. It's harder to keep over time the anemic domain model. And the learn curve, the only benefit here is really that is the anemic model is really simple to build, because it's this procedural programming style, and you define one process that it's hard to be reused. It's more procedural. You have one specific procedure from the beginning to the end, and that's it, right? But when thinking about business applications with complex domains, then it's harder to maintain on one big application running like that. So are anemic models always bad then? Like, should I burn them whenever I see them? No, right? So there are some places where they are valid. So if the application is very, very simple, doesn't have any business rule, or like you are bringing data from one service to the other and you are not responsible for doing any validations, or you are not owner of this data, you are just a pipe that is taking data from somewhere and placing the data another place, that's fine. You don't have any business rule to implement, so you can have this plain data objects that you can use. So systems that are not complex at all, so very tiny systems, also systems that you can throw away, because everything that is very simple you can throw away. You can write multiple times and that's fine. But something that it's not that simple, something that you cannot throw away, then you would better be using the rich domain models. So also microservices that are purely focused on data, right? So this thing where you have this pipe and you are bringing data from some application to another application, you're just moving data around. There is also a good place to have it. Now, when the domain logic needs to grow and you are supporting a business behavior that keeps changing because the business always keeps changing, then rich domain suits better. When you have also domain experts and you need to collaborate um, from business experts to technical people experts like business analysts to programmers, then also identifying what are the use cases and implementing them inside of the domain also helps with this rich domain model. And also whenever you have these complex business rules that needs to be maintained and evolved. So trade-offs, right? Rich domain requires more upfront investment, so you need to think more to build it. It's not that easy to build. You need to reason more about and discuss better before the initial implementation, but they are better to maintain in the long term. Now, anemic models are the other way around. They are fast to start, and but they can lead to a lot of technical debt when the domain complexity starts to grow. So maybe if you are questioning yourself how to start any application, you could start from anemic domain, and whenever you see that you are adding behavior to it, then you switch to the rich domain. But in general, we also and know when something is written to throw away or to keep. So if you are building a software that is to keep, that you are being maintaining this application for a long time and is not just moving data around, then the rich domain would probably be the best approach. Now the conclusions. So rich domain models empower the domain. They avoid trap of anemic models in complex systems. And DDD, right, domain driven object, is about then aligning the code with the real world domain. So you really map the real world inside of your code. So one last catchphrase, let your code speak the language of the business. Then I added here, I'll share this PowerPoint with you guys. So there are some references, right? So from Martin Follen, he's talking about the dynamic domain, and he is referring it to as an anti-pattern that should be avoided. Also, we have from Softentity, colleague that we had, Wesley Baldan, he wrote this article here. So I'm sharing those two as a reference. Also, they have more content inside of it, so you guys can check in depth. And that would be it. So thanks for joining, participating. Any questions you guys have? Anything I could help you with?
Thank you. Like I only have one question, like just to understand. Like let's say that you start with the anemic and then like you realize that you need to switch to the other one. Like you need to write
Mhm.
everything from scratch, or like you can do modifications to adapt the code,
Yeah,
basically.
no, you can do modifications. See, so
Ah,
I
okay.
still have the same properties I had before in the rich domain. So I still have the account number, the balance, everything, but I'm changing the setter. So here I'm
Ah,
modifying them
okay.
to be private, and I'm adding then behavior within this one. So that's why you can maybe if you don't know that the application, like you have a POC, you are proving some concept, right? And you need to write some code very fast. So it's fine to build like this, prepare some procedural step, and then, okay, the application is good, it will fit our needs, we must to keep it. Then you refactor your code. So you bring the behavior you had in some other place, some other service inside of your domain, and you start to enrich your domain. So
Ah,
it's
okay.
kind of easy to switch from one to the other. Now, the other way around would be harder to do, and I don't recommend you to do so. If you have a rich domain, you should stick to it and not spread things around services or any other place.
Super. Thank you.
Sure. Any other question, comments? If you guys disagree with me, please say also. Right.
Oh, I don't disagree. I agree. Man, how often do you see code like that, anemic domains on your day by day?
A
In your
lot.
experience, how? Oh, okay.
So actually,
That's
in my team, we have this problem now, and Vuk could also complement if he likes. But so people like this idea maybe because of they think about single responsibility principle. So I'm defining my code based on the structure I have in the database. But the database is not the most important part you have in your application. The database is some outside layer. So you should never define your domain based on the outside layer, right? It should be the other way around. So, but the good thing is also, I think, that you can refactor by piece by piece. So you don't say from one day to the other, okay, I will kill this anemic domain and I will move everything around. No. Whenever you are evolving the code, so you need to build some functionality or you are extending the existing functionality, you could simply extract the pieces that belongs to this specific domain entity and place it here. And the code would still work just fine. You still have some parts that are in this procedural style of programming and are not respecting really the DDD or OOP. But you can move piece by piece, and also whenever you move, you can also create unit tests to make sure that this will never break again or won't be removed by mistake by someone else. So, but yeah, I still unfortunately see a lot of this type of code because it's easy to start with, right? So people think about entity
it's
mappings
also
in the database and start to do.
it's also avoid you to have a lot of mappers mapping from database to model, from entity to entity, from what the user will see in the front end or
Hmm.
whatever. So yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, maybe it's also related to the traditional way that people worked in the past using MVC patterns, where
Hmm.
everything was basically one single thing, one single big thing. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
pretty cool, man, to see about these
Totally.
discussions. Since we have a lot of weird code there. And how are you handling to enforce people to use this new model? Basically, reviews, or do you have any lock or whatever in the code?
Hmm. Yeah, no, this would be mainly in code reviews, but also is a good thing to agree with the team, right? So explain why this is bad and prone to errors, and then see if everybody agrees, and then people would start to do by themselves. Because when you see the reason behind why enriching your domain, why this helps you in the future, because the thing is, think about the future. So what is the type of software that you would like to maintain, right? How many bugs you want to have because you forgot to change a code that is duplicating two, three places, right? So it's a world that you wouldn't like to live. So when you are able, I think, to express the meaning why it's important and the good things and agree with the team, then you can start to have better code. But if you don't do that, it's hard to catch and enforce. I don't think there are tools that could, maybe now with AI you could try to identify these patterns, because also you have a Copilot doing PR reviews. Maybe you could add some extra rules there to verify that. Could be interesting. But I think the most important thing is to get to this common sense as a team, the way you should design your code. Then would be easier to get to the rich domain and have this healthier code that is easier to maintain.
Nice. Just to finish my participation here, you told some examples before about a person class, and you
Hmm.
use it yourself as an example, and you put the attributes beautiful, nice, and pretty. Are
Hmm.
you sure about that?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying,
Just
not
kidding,
about
man.
the specific attribute. Oh, I see now. Yeah, no, that I meant for real. All right. So, yeah.
Good
Okay.
joke, Ryan.
Yeah.